Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 episode number 111 based on novel. So let's start. I have to join the Tang sect. However, they are so powerful. If I join the Tang sect, my life won't be as painful. Then again, how can I answer to my mother? Just as Nan Chocho was having this internal argument, Wang Donga came over to Hua Yuhao's side and asked in a low voice, "Yuhao, how are you?" Hua Yuhao smiled and said, "Excellent. Did you see how cool I looked when I beat 7 of them?" Wang Donga covered her smile and said, "Yes, you're very cool. Enough is enough. You almost tricked the other team's captain into joining us. This is a resounding victory. However, why do you always seem to have some issue with a person called Chiu? Is it deliberate?" Hua Yuhao said with an awkward look on his face. "As for that, Donga, you know, Wang Donga smiled and said, "It's fine, we'll talk about it later." As she said that, she pushed his wheelchair with one hand as she placed her other hand on Hua Yuhao's shoulder. Their Haodong power fused and helped Hua Yuhao replenish his soul power. After examining his body and ascertaining that he was fine, Wang Donga relaxed. "Chocho, get down now," an angry voice rang out. Nan Chocho trembled. She turned around to look, and realized that a pretty woman, who shared a sharp resemblance with her, was speaking to her. However, her face was icy cold. Only then did Nan Chocho leave the arena with a dejected look on her face as she made way for the next round. "Mom," Nan Chocho said in a low voice. The middle-aged woman said angrily, "Don't call me Mom. The Earth Dragon sect has been utterly humiliated because of you. I put you in charge of the tournament, and yet, you did not send a single strong team member out. Instead, our opponent thrashed all 7 members of our team with just one guy. You. The chest of the woman rose and fell rapidly in her rage. Nan Chocho lowered her head and said, "Mom, I know I'm in the wrong. However, they are indeed powerful. The one in the wheelchair is at least a Soul Emperor. The one who blocked me just now is also a Soul Emperor." "Soul Emperor?" The middle-aged woman paused momentarily, but her face still betrayed an ugly expression. "So what if they're Soul Emperors? You sent 7 people out, but none of you could defeat a single one of them. In some rounds, your teammates lost without any reason. In particular, you, as the captain, not only led your team to defeat, but continued to holler afterward. What kind of behavior is this? This time, when we get back, you shall go to the Dragon Suppressing Cliff and cultivate alone for a year. If you don't become a Soul Emperor by then, don't even think of coming out." Nan Chocho suddenly knelt in front of her mother. "Mom, I'm sorry." The middle-aged woman was momentarily stunned. Her eyes betrayed a tinge of heartbreak. Nan Chocho was her daughter, after all, and she was indeed exceptional enough. However, because of how exceptional she was, she had become arrogant. Among her fellow sect members of the same generation, she was the most cherished one of them all. Her seniors liked her, and not only did her peers like her, but they even let her do whatever she wanted. This time, after she made such a huge mistake, the middle-aged woman was determined to take this chance to discipline her. If not, no one knew how she would screw up in the future. "Get up. What are you doing in front of all these people?" The middle-aged woman shouted. This was the resting zone, and there were many other sects watching this spectacle. From the start, she did not count on the Earth Dragon sect to obtain good results here. Instead, her objective was to show them the world. However, they were eliminated after only the first round. Of course, defeat was just defeat. The more important thing was for them to learn their lessons. She did not find defeat to be particularly humiliating. However, she would not tell these youths these things. "Mom, I don't think I can go back with you." Nan Chocho fumbled with her words as she tried to speak with her head bowed. A cunning look flashed in her eyes. The middle-aged woman was stunned. Then, she bellowed in rage, "You dare to defy my orders? Don't forget, I'm not only your mother, but I'm also the sect mistress of the Earth Dragon sect. You know what the rules of our sect are." Nan Chocho shook her head vigorously, and then lifted her head once more. At this time, tears streamed uncontrollably down her face. "Mom, I'm sorry but it's too late. In the round just now, I made a bet with Hua Yuhao and I lost myself to him." "What?" At this point, the middle-aged woman was truly stunned. What are you saying? You lost yourself to a cripple? You are really infuriating. Are you going to spend the rest of your life with a cripple? Even if he's powerful, she could not speak anymore. Her entire face was red. What was a tournament in comparison to her daughter's happiness? When Nan Chocho heard that, she realized that her mother had misunderstood her. She quickly explained herself. No, Mom, it's not like that. I lost myself, yes, but I lost myself to the Tang sect. We bet that if I won, he'd join the Earth Dragon sect, but if I lost, I'd join the Tang sect." As she said that, her voice became softer and softer as she lowered her head once more. When the woman recovered from her shock, She asked about the details of the bet once more. Nan Chocho did not dare to hide anything from her as she recounted the entire process once more. Mom, I know I made a mistake, and I fell for his trick. However, if I'm willing to bet, I should honor it. Furthermore, he's right. If I don't honor my bet, it'll be difficult for me to make any sort of breakthrough once my cultivation reaches a bottleneck. At this point, Nan Chocho's tears flowed freely. The leader of the Earth Dragon sect was stunned. Not only did she lose the competition, but she had also lost her own daughter, too. As the sect leader, she could certainly forcibly bar her daughter from joining the Tang sect. However, if she did, it would prove problematic for Nan Chocho's future. She inhaled deeply and calmed herself down. She glared at Nan Chocho, but at the same time, she pulled her up. Come with me. As she said that, she pulled Nan Chocho toward the resting zone where the Tang sect Saturday. Over on the Tang sect side, Hua Yuhao had already told everyone his story about how he had made a bet with Nan Chocho. Everyone had an odd expression on their face. In the end, only He Kai-tu said something honest. That girl is too silly. Xiao Xiao looked at him coldly and said, she's just innocent, alright? Yuhao is too devious. He tricked her completely, so pitiful. However, it's not a bad thing for our sect to have more girls too. Hee hee. As they spoke, the woman pulled Nan Chocho over to them. Who's in charge of the Tang sect? The woman asked plainly. Everyone from the Tang sect looked at Hua Yuhao. The woman was stunned. Her eyes turned cold. Can this young man in the wheelchair be their leader, as well? Hello senior, what do you seek from us? The woman resembled Nan Chocho, so Hua Yuhao could guess their relationship. He felt awkward too. He had tricked her daughter over from right under her nose. This was a dishonorable move. You're called Hua Yuhao, right? I heard about your bet with Chocho. I'm the leader of the Earth Dragon sect, Nan Shueishui, and her mother. State your price, and I'll buy her back, the woman said plainly. Nan Chocho coughed. Mom, I'm not a commodity. Nan Shueishui glared at her, and she shut up. Hua Yuhao said with an awkward smile, Senior, the Tang sect does not lack money. Just now, in the competition, you know that words are weapons too. While we did make a bet, there's no need to treat it so seriously. It's alright if you take her back. In front of her mother, he could not just tell her to live up to what she had promised in the bet and leave her life behind. Nan Shueishui said, while the Earth Dragon sect is not an influential sect on the continent, it's still one of the top-ranked sects in the Doling Empire. How can our words count for nothing? Since she made a bet with you, there's nothing I can say. If you want her to join the Tang sect, I'm fine with it, on 2 conditions. Hua Yuhao was stunned. What kind of mother would give her own daughter to the Tang sect? While he did want to recruit Nan Chocho, he was not confident that it would actually happen. After all, he had made the bet casually. He did not expect the opportunity to truly arise. What are they? Hua Yuhao replied calmly. Nan Shueishui said, First, while my daughter did lose her bet to you, she's still a disciple of the Earth Dragon sect. There'll be a price to pay if she wants to leave my sect. For you, I'll give you a discount. She can join your Tang sect for a certain period of time. Afterward, if she wishes to stay, she can stay. If not, she is free to return. You can't stop her. Second, Chocho is a girl. You can't force her to do things that she doesn't want to do. Promise me these 2 things, and I'll agree to let her leave the Earth Dragon sect. If not, I'd rather she break her promise and remain in the Earth Dragon sect. Hua Yuhao looked at his friends. This mother was easy to negotiate with. These 2 conditions were like nothing. What's a suitable time frame? Hua Yuhao asked. Nan Shueishui thought for a while, and then said, 3 years. If the Tang sect can allow her to become a sole emperor in 3 years, you can extend the time frame for another 2 years. However, after 5 years, it'll be time for her to get married. By that time, we would have lived up to our promise. How about it? I agree. Hua Yuhao replied without hesitation. In these few years, there would be many changes to the continent. The Tang sect needed talents to grow. With her current cultivation, it would not be difficult to get Nan Chocho to rise to a sole emperor in 3 years. All she had to do was get 6 rings and rise a few more ranks. However, Hua Yuhao was confident. In the next 5 years, the Tang sect would grow exponentially. He did not dare to say how strong the Tang sect would be in 5 years' time, but it would not be hard to keep Nan Chocho. Nan Chocho was stunned. She had not expected her mother to give her up so easily. The 2 conditions were almost meaningless. 5 years. She would soon become a disciple of the Tang sect for at least 5 years. Nan Shueishui looked Hua Yuhao deep in the eyes, nodded, and said, All right, then I shall hand Chocho over to you. As long as you don't deliberately bully her, it's all right for you to be slightly strict with her. I've spoiled this girl. This time, she has to pay for her own mistakes to learn a lesson. Oh right, where is the Tang sect? After this competition, I wish to pay your sect a visit. Hua Yuhao smiled and replied, We welcome you wholeheartedly. The Tang sect is located in Shrek City. As long as you are there, it won't be hard to find us. The Tang sect has a long history, but it has also had a period of decline. We're rebuilding the Tang sect, and we are confident that we'll turn it into an even more powerful sect. Shrek City? Nan Shueishui's eyes betrayed a look of shock. She dismissed some of the thoughts she had instantly. She turned her head to look at Nan Chocho and said, "All right, you're now part of the Tang sect. 5 years from now, in the next tournament, you make the call as to whether you want to return or not. It's settled." With that, the sect leader of the Earth Dragon sect turned to leave. While Nan Chocho had planned to join the Tang sect to avoid punishment, she could not help but feel wronged when her mother gave her away so easily. Tears streamed down her face. Wang Donga approached her and said, "Chocho, the Tang sect is not a bad place. By joining the Tang sect, we promise that it will not affect your future development negatively. We welcome you." As she said that, she extended her hand out. Ever since Wang Donga got together with Hua Yuhao, she decided to give up her cross-dressing charade. Hence, she fell into her role as a girl, but she forgot about the dangerous impact of her cross-dressing. When Nan Chocho heard Wang Donga's words, she lifted her head to look at her perfectly formed face. She nodded, and not only did she stop her tears from flowing, but she reached out and grabbed Wang Donga's hands. Wang Donga led her to the resting area. There was nothing wrong with Wang Donga holding Nan Chocho's hand. However, it made someone else immensely jealous. She actually dares to hold Wang Dong's hand. "I'll kill her," Meng Hongchen said with gritted teeth as she walked out of the resting zone. "Be calm, sister, you must be calm." Xiao Hongchen rushed toward to hold her. A helpless look crossed his face. He did not know why his sister would lose a few IQ points every time Wang Dong was mentioned. Nan Shui returned to the Earth Dragon sect side and sat down. A smile crept across her face as she thought, Tang sect. What a sect. Shrek Academy's Tang sect. That is the perfect place to train Chocho. The Earth Dragon sect had a mysterious secret technique that originated from its first sect leader more than 1,000 years ago. They were able to determine the personality of a person just by looking at her face. Just now, she could see the righteousness in the faces of the Tang sect disciples. If not, as a mother, how could she entrust her daughter to strangers? Furthermore, after she heard that the Tang sect was in Shrek City, she was even more relieved. Among the group of youngsters, at least 2 of them were Soul Emperors. What did that mean? Before they signed up, Nan Shui had deliberately researched past tournaments. Any team with a Soul Emperor would be able to enter the top 8. For them to have Soul Masters at that level, and for them to establish their sect in Shrek City, how could anyone believe that they had no ties whatsoever with Shrek Academy? Due to her assessments, Nan Shui had enough assurance to make her decision. She abandoned her plan of bringing a few men to kick up a fuss at the Tang sect. Of course, she would still pay a visit to the Tang sect. She had to see if her daughter had a future in the sect. All mothers were the same in this aspect. No matter how tough they seemed, their kids could melt their hearts. While the competition had ended for the Tang sect, Hua Yuhao his team did not return to the hotel. Instead, they stayed to continue watching the tournament. He was waiting to see a particular sect fight. Soon, his wait paid off. As noon approached, the morning rounds for the second day were coming to an end. Soon, it was the last round. Holy Ghost Sect vs Heavenly Capital Academy. Participants, please approach the arena. Hua Yuhao was resting with his eyes closed, but when he heard the name Holy Ghost Sect, he opened his eyes immediately. He looked toward the resting zone. Indeed, he saw a youth clad in black walking out. The tips of his feet touched the ground, and soon, he was in the arena. His attire was exactly the same as Tang Ya's. Holy Ghost Sect, Holy Ghost Church. It was indeed them. They really decided to take part in the competition. Hua Yuhao's expression turned serious. He stared intently at the youth in black. Wang Donga sat next to him, looking slightly vexed. Right after she asked Nan Chocho to sit down next to her, she realized that something was wrong. She had made the same mistake once more. Nan Chocho finally calmed down and then, she continually asked him about the Tang sect. Then, she started to ask more personal questions. Undoubtedly, she had her own secret objective. Wang Donga had experienced too many of these types of situations already. Wang Dong, where do I stay once I'm at the Tang sect? What method did Hua Yuhao use to defeat the last member of my Earth Dragon sect? Wang Dong, you are really handsome, but your shoulders are slightly narrow. Hey, your feet aren't big either. What's your size? Nan Chocho blurted out a whole bunch of crap in just a short while. The other members of the Tang sect pretended to not hear. They sat there rigidly, but the mirth in their eyes could not be concealed. Evidently, another girl had become infatuated with Wang Donga. Nan Chocho was no romantic. However, when she met this handsome young man who had managed to reach rank 60 before he was 20, how could she not be attracted to him? Perhaps she did not even realize it herself. Just like Hua Yuhao said, Wang Donga could charm both guys and girls. At this moment, Hua Yuhao's attention was completely focused on the tournament. The youth from the Holy Ghost sect in black looked plain, his face slightly pale. However, when Hua Yuhao cast his spiritual detection over him, he felt something eerie. The Sun Moon Empire led the continent in terms of soul tools. For such a huge arena, the protective barrier was over 500 meters high, and its protective abilities were amazing indeed. Hence, Hua Yuhao, with his current spiritual cultivation, had to expend a lot of spiritual power to penetrate the barrier. However, he had to find out more about the Holy Ghost sect, so he did not mind making the sacrifice. Earlier, when he finished off the Earth Dragon sect, Hua Yuhao had relied on his spiritual shock. Unlike before, he could now completely control the intensity of his attack. He could render his opponent unconscious without actually hurting him. If he wished, even a Soul Emperor could not resist a blow from his spiritual shock. Actually, this was his trump card, and hence, he had only revealed it when he was shrouded in darkness. He would not use it easily. Hua Yuhao was not a real cripple. As his spiritual power increased, he realized that his soul power and his body could not match it. For example, he would not dare to use his Eye of Destiny to release his spiritual shock. If he did so, his brain would be unable to take it, and it might very well explode. As for this problem, he tried to ask Elder Shen what he should do. Elder Shen gave him a simple answer. If a Soul Master wanted to make an all-around improvement, his soul power would serve as his foundation, as well as the most important measure. With a rise in soul power, other aspects of the Soul Master's body would increase as well. In the long run, his cultivation would become stronger and stronger. Regardless of whether it pertained to one's tenacity in terms of spiritual power or soul power, the precondition was that one had to have a strong body first. Hua Yuhao's body was indeed more exceptional than other Soul Masters of his rank. Furthermore, with the vast life energy from the Life Gold and his twin martial souls, his body's caliber easily rivaled that of a 6-ringed Soul Emperor. However, that was his limit, as he still only had 5 rings. Right now, his spiritual power astounded even Elder Shen. One could only guess the improvement he had experienced in terms of his spiritual power. Elder Shen told him directly that if he wanted to capitalize on his concrete material realm spiritual power, he had to reach the stage of a titled Doluor. Only then could his body reach a level that allowed him to release his spiritual power without reservation. Of course, there was a more superficial method. He could also retrieve a powerful soul bone that would allow his spiritual C to stabilize. Like that, when he released his spiritual power, his attack would be more powerful. Of course, he would still be unable to maximize his full strength, and hence, the best way to overcome this problem was to rely on simply increasing his cultivation. However, he still could not use his immense spiritual power to its fullest extent. Chiefly, he could not use explosive-type abilities. As for spiritual detection, spiritual interference, spiritual sharing, and other pseudo-soul skills, they had all experienced a tremendous increase in power. This was why Hua Yuhao was still the main control-type Soul Master on the team. As a faint light flashed, a cold look crossed Hua Yuhao's face. He narrowed his eyes and his spiritual power was locked onto the youth from the Holy Ghost sect. From his target's soul power, he could sense that he was a 5-ringed Soul King. He could not be said to be strong. However, the eeriness he gave off told Hua Yuhao that he was an evil Soul Master. There was no other possibility. The Heavenly Capital Academy was an old, well-established school. Like the Earth Dragon sect that the Tang sect had just encountered, it was from the Doling Empire. The first person it sent out was also a youth. He was tall, sturdy, and clearly energetic. The judge noted that both competitors were in their respective positions. His right hand came down swiftly, and the two competitors acted at the same time as they charged toward each other. The Holy Ghost sect youth's body started to shine with a pale, white light. His body seemed to remain normal, but his two hands, under the glow of the light, turned ghastly pale. As he lowered his head, his eyes turned white too. What kind of martial soul was this? Even Hua Yuhao could not detect the martial soul this youth released instantly. This was the first round of the tournament, and every team wanted to start their first rounds off with a bang. The youth from the Heavenly Capital Academy was not weak either. As he roared loudly, his body emitted a powerful energy. 2 long knives appeared in his hands. A total of 5 soul rings, 2 yellow and 3 purple, circled around his knives. Without a doubt, they were his martial soul. The two sides quickly approached each other. When they were just inches away, the Heavenly Capital Academy youth leapt into the air. The first soul ring around his body started to shine and in mid-air, he sliced down toward the Holy Ghost sect competitor in a crescent-shaped arc. Yellow jolts of electricity shot out from the blades of his knives, and crackling sounds rang out as they arced through the air. This martial soul was impressive indeed. On the battlefield, it was more powerful than normal assault-type martial souls. Hua Yuhao silently assessed the situation. At the same time, he began to concentrate harder as he observed how the Holy Ghost sect youth would react. The Holy Ghost sect youth had 5 rings too. However, he had the ideal soul ring combination. As he noticed his opponent's crescent-shaped attack coming toward him, his body suddenly twisted oddly. Everyone felt as if he had turned into a shadow, causing his opponent to momentarily lose his target. The crescent-shaped attack landed on the metallic ground, leaving a deep scar behind. At the same time, a black tornado rose up from the ground. As the tornado shrieked, it charged toward the Heavenly Capital Soul Master. The Heavenly Capital student was still in mid-air. In this position, his strength was maximized. His third soul ring started to shine, and the knives in his hands formed 3 rays of faint shadow. This time, the 3 rays, which seemed more powerful than the light from the knives, came rushing out. As the rays of blade light flew out, the body of the Heaven Capital Academy youth shone with an intense yellow light. It was as if the sun had descended. Triple Sun Moon Slash, a powerful 1000-year soul skill. Instantly, the tornado that was about to encircle him was sliced to pieces by the knives. The 3 rays of blade light then turned inward, and quickly afterwards, they exploded into countless smaller rays that shot outward. Regardless of whether it was in terms of strength, control, or power, this attack had them all. The other teams in the resting zone could not help but nod their heads in approval. This student from the Heavenly Capital Academy was extraordinary, indeed. Just when everyone thought that the Holy Ghost sect youth could not continue this fight anymore, the black smoke, which had just been sliced apart, suddenly spread outward. Following that, its color became paler, and soon, it turned purple before reforming itself. With Hua Yuhao's spiritual detection, he could hear wailing and crying. From the inside of the thick purple smoke, a purple skull flashed and then quickly disappeared. It all happened too fast. As it was too fast, almost everyone on scene could not even react. The Heavenly Capital Academy youth had already been devoured by the purple smoke. In the next instance, the smoke retracted itself and turned into an arrow as it flew into the distance. Over there, the Holy Ghost sect youth's body reformed as he landed on the ground. The Heavenly Capital Academy youth reappeared in midair. However, he appeared to have lost control over his body. At that moment, his skin was deathly white. The knives in his hands disappeared, and his body fell from the sky, unmoving. Oh shit. Hua Yuhao closed his eyes. He had been using spiritual detection to observe this competition. He had the best view and understanding of this entire fight. The soul of the Heavenly Capital Academy youth had been completely devoured. While his body was intact, it was just an empty shell. The 4th soul skill. The combatant from the Holy Ghost sect had used his 4th soul skill from the smoke. His soul skill was akin to an insect, a very odd insect. It was small and like a needle. If not for Hua Yuhao's spiritual power, accompanied with the evolution of his purple demon eyes to the Sumeru realm, he would not have been able to discover it. The black smoke was a manifestation of countless insects from his martial soul. When the black smoke turned purple, it was because these insects opened their wings, which were purple. Then, their bodies entered a half-energy realm as they forced their way into the head of the youth from the Heavenly Capital Academy. They entered him from his 7 orifices. Not only did they devour his soul, but they even ate his brains. Such a cruel evil soul master. The Holy Ghost sect youth, who had just devoured a soul king, brimmed with energy. His ice-cold eyes betrayed a look of joy. Evil soul masters were not only strong, but they were able to improve rapidly at a certain cultivation level. However, after they accumulated more than 5 rings, their cultivation would gradually slow down, depending on how powerful their evil martial souls were. The more powerful their evil martial souls were, the faster they would improve. At the same time, they required other forms of assistance. If not, why would they be called evil soul masters? Heavenly Capital Academy, dead. Next. When they heard the word dead, the waiting zone for the Heavenly Capital Academy instantly went into an uproar. Everyone stood up as they stared angrily at the Holy Ghost sect competitors. The first competitor from the Holy Ghost sect rushed out from the waiting zone. After he ran out, the other members of the Holy Ghost sect sauntered out. According to the rules, there should have been 6 members. However, only 3 of them walked out. Tang Ye was nowhere to be seen. There were just 3 cold youths. They all had different physiques. However, their eyes were all ice-cold and treacherous. Including the one on stage, there were only 4 people on their team. This also meant that they were confident in winning this competition with just 4 members. What level of confidence was this? The Heavenly Capital Academy sent 2 of its students to retrieve the corpse of their schoolmate. When they lifted his corpse, a huge amount of blood gushed out from his orifices, staining the arena red. Over on the Holy Ghost sect side, a youth licked his lips and mumbled to himself, "What a waste, such fresh blood. How can you kill?" The teacher in charge of the Heavenly Capital Academy stood up in rage as he made an angry protest. In previous tournaments, people died too. If you are capable, you can kill us too, a cold, clear voice retorted from the resting zone. The Heavenly Capital Academy had no right to enter the pavilion in the resting zone. The face of the teacher in charge changed rapidly. Suddenly, he strode toward the waiting zone. Stop, the teacher in charge can't enter the waiting zone to direct the battle. If not, you'll be disqualified. The organizing team of the tournament naturally sent someone out to block him. We aren't going to fight. We admit defeat, the teacher said angrily. This is a competition, not a life and death fight. That was pure murder. Everyone can see that it was blatant murder. It was not an accident from the competition. The Heavenly Capital Academy withdraws from the competition. Everyone get back, we aren't doing this anymore. When they heard the teacher's words, the remaining members of the Heavenly Capital Academy team sighed in relief. The youth in black was too mysterious. They had sent their captain out just now, and if even he died under such mysterious circumstances, how would the rest of them fare? Everyone feared death. They were here to compete, not to die. On the main podium, Shu Tianran frowned and said, "Imperial tutor, tell your guys not to go overboard. This is just a competition. There are other places for them to show off their skills where they won't be subjected to such criticisms." "Okay," the man in black next to him said plainly. In just one round, the Holy Ghost sect was able to scare its opponent off. Likewise, they progressed to the next round with 12 full points. When the youth in black walked off the arena, he was booed intensely by everyone. His cruel methods not only provoked the other teams in the resting zone, but also earned him the displeasure of the crowd. Hua Yuhao sat there stunned in his wheelchair. His eyes were blank. Slowly, his blank eyes betrayed an incredulous look. Wang Donga was the first to notice this. What happened, Yuhao? That voice, did you hear it? From the pavilion in the resting zone, Hua Yuhao said dazedly. Wang Donga paused for a while, and then said, I heard it. It sounded familiar. Was that teacher Tang Ya? Hua Yuhao shook his head and said, No. It sounded like Sister's voice. Sister. Wang Donga looked at shock at Hua Yuhao. Then she quickly got over her shock. Hua Yuhao had told her that he was an orphan. She was familiar with his background. There was only one person he would call sister. You mean to say that was Sister Xiaotao's voice? That can't be real, Wang Donga said in shock. Hua Yuhao turned his head to look at her seriously and said, Why can't it be real? If this is true, it would make sense. Sister Xiaotao's disappearance has something to do with Jing Hongchen. This is undeniable. He probably used some trick when he was observing her, which allowed her to leave so easily. Furthermore, when Sister Xiaodao disappeared, the academy was under attack, too. Teacher told me that the attackers were a group of evil soul masters. The Holy Ghost sect is the only sect formed from evil soul masters that I know of. If they captured Sister Xiaodao, then everything would make sense. Sister Xiaodao and teacher Tang Ya have been captured by them. These bastards. As he said that, Hua Yuhao clenched his fists and became more and more emotional. Despite how reasonable his prediction was, he would have never expected to see Ma Xiaodao here until he heard her voice. The competitions for the morning end now. For the teams that are competing in the afternoon, please don't be late. The teams who have finished competing may return to their hotels to rest and prepare for the subsequent rounds. The competitions for the morning of the second day ended. However, Hua Yuhao could not help but stare at the pavilion in the resting zone. He saw the group of black-clothed Holy Ghost sect disciples quickly leaving the pavilion. Other than Tang Ya, his gaze instantly fell on a female disciple of the Holy Ghost sect. Like Tang Ya, her face was covered with a veil. Hua Yuhao closed his eyes briefly, and as his spiritual power vibrated, he was able to implant his own voice into her head. Sister. The black-robed woman paused momentarily. However, she appeared to not have heard Hua Yuhao's voice as she continued walking forward with her teammates. Evidently, the other youths in black respected her greatly. She and Tang Ya were in the center as they walked out. Hua Yuhao paused momentarily as a look of confusion crossed his eyes. The result of his probe was not what he had expected. Could this mean? Yuhao, Wang Donga called him gently. Hua Yuhao nodded and said, Let's go. Circled by everyone, they also left the resting zone as they proceeded toward the Brilliant Delight Hotel. On their way there, Hua Yuhao fell into deep thought. Nan Chocho appeared to have calmed herself down. She was much quieter, but she still kept close to Wang Donga. When she saw Wang Donga pushing Hua Yuhao's wheelchair, the expression on her face changed. She harbored no good feelings toward Yuhao. If not for his tricks, she would not be in the Tang sect. After obtaining victory in the first elimination round, they had ample time to rest. Before the competition started in the morning, the organizing team had announced that the first elimination round would last 4 days because there were just too many teams. This also meant that they had 2 more days of rest. It was not early, so the first thing they did upon returning to the hotel was to head for the cafeteria to eat. In terms of dining, there were clear differences. For teams like them who resided on the 4th level, they could only have their meal in the common cafeteria. For teams who resided above the 4th floor, they could order their meals directly, and the hotel would try to fulfill their every request. As they sat around the round table, dishes that had already been prepared were quickly served. While their treatment was not as good as the treatment accorded to more famous sects and schools, the food was not too shabby either. After all, the Brilliant Delight Hotel was one of the best in Radiant City. Shu Sanxia took some food out to send to the injured Bei. Hua Yuhao looked at Nan Chocho, who sat next to Wang Donga, lifted the cup of warm water in front of him and said, Come, let us all raise our cups. Chocho, welcome to the Tang sect. Now, I'll introduce everyone to you. As he said that, Hua Yuhao introduced his teammates to Nan Chocho one by one. Nan Chocho's mouth twitched as she glared at him and said, Liar. An awkward expression crossed Hua Yuhao's face as he said, You can't blame me for this. At that time, you were too arrogant. I thought that no one would fall for such a trick. What do you mean by that? Nan Chocho, who had just regained her calm with much difficulty, was incensed once again. Hua Yuhao shook his head helplessly and said, Let's eat. Explain this to me clearly before you eat. Nan Chocho stood up suddenly. The anger she had been suppressing on her way here was only suppressed because of Wang Donga. However, on the way here, the more she thought about how she had ended up here, the angrier she got. How could she lose herself so easily? In the Tang sect, she could not enjoy herself as much as she used to in the Earth Dragon sect. She also did not know how the others would treat her. Her panic and rage were all concentrated on Hua Yuhao. Hua Yuhao looked at her in pity and said, Now I finally understand why your mother was so willing to send you over to us. Nan Chocho was already upset with her mother because of this. When Hua Yuhao said this princess was so triggered that she could almost explode. Her soul power was pulsating violently. What do you want to do? Wang Donga turned her head over to glare at her. Among everyone from the Tang sect, Nan Chocho disliked Wang Donga the least. Her face contorted with rage, she said, forcing me to join the Tang sect is just a way for you to humiliate me. If you can, kill me now. I'll rather die than surrender, He Kaitu said in a stunned voice. Is it so serious? Sister, we are good people. Who's your sister, Baldai? Nan Chocho said angrily. How can you say that? Xiao Xiao could take no more. She slammed the table and stood up. A fight was on the verge of breaking out. At this moment, Jing Xian chortled and stood up. She pressed Xiao Xiao and said, What are you doing? What are all of you doing? Aren't you hungry? I'm hungry. Sister Chocho, don't worry so much. Now that you're in the Tang sect, everyone welcomes you. No one will target you for anything. Sit down and eat. Once we get back, I'll accompany you. Don't worry, if anyone dares to bully you, I'll stand up for you. I am like their teacher in charge. They'll listen to me. No one reacted to what Jing Xian had just said. Everyone stared at her with an odd gaze. She sounds like a wolf in disguise. When Nan Chocho looked at Jing Xian, who was smiling, the expression on her face changed for the better. Finally, someone was speaking her language. Furthermore, now that her mother had allowed her to join the Tang sect, she knew that her own abilities could not take so many of them on at once. Hence, she decided not to say anything, but instead ate her meal angrily. Hua Yuhao looked at Jing Xian and then at Ji Juechen, who sat next to her emotionlessly. In his heart, he thought, it's not a bad decision to let these two train Nan Chocho's temper. No one from the Tang sect took kindly to Nan Chocho's temper. Hence, no one bothered her too much. They ate their meal in silence. Where does everyone want to go in the afternoon? Hua Yuhao asked his friends after he wiped his mouth clean with a white cloth. Shu Sanxia, who had returned from delivering Bei Bei his meal, said, It doesn't matter. Haven't you seen all the teams that you're interested in? Hua Yuhao nodded and said, I've seen the most important one, yes. As for the others, there are too many things that can't be seen clearly now. I recommend that everyone rest in the hotel for now and get ready for the next round. Everyone nodded in agreement with Hua Yuhao's suggestion. They still had quite some buffer time afterward. This would benefit Bei Bei in making a full recovery. Alright, let's go back and rest. Hua Yuhao made the decision after he sought everyone's opinion. Everyone stood up and prepared to leave the cafeteria. A displeased voice sounded, wait a moment, where will I stay? Nan Chocho looked upset as she stared at everyone. She felt as if they had all forgotten about her. Before Hua Yuhao could open his mouth, Jing Xian walked up to her with a smile and said, You can stay with me. While our living conditions aren't ideal, it won't be too much trouble to have one more person. Xiao Xiao and Jiang Nannan stayed together. Wang Donga stayed with Hua Yuhao. Jing Xian and Nana stayed together. If Nan Chocho stayed with them, the three girls would share one room. Nana said, slightly peeved, Sister Xian, what will I do? Jing Xian said, It's fine. If we combine 2 beds, it should be enough for 3 people to sleep together. What? We have to combine beds? Nan Chocho looked at them in shock. No, I must have my own room. Get the organizing team to give me my own room. Shu Sanxia chuckled and said, Beauty, who do you think we are? We're just a small, unknown sect. Will the organizing team listen to us? When in Shrek, do as the Shreks do. Since you've already joined our sect, stop making so much trouble for us. With Jiang Nannan present, he was much more reserved. Under other circumstances, he would have made fun of her far more mercilessly. That's not possible, Nan Chocho said defiantly. Hua Yuhao said, How about this? You can go and rest with the Earth Dragon sect for now. After the tournament ends, we'll bring you back to the Tang sect. After all, you signed up as an Earth Dragon sect disciple, and you can't compete on our behalf. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.